What's up, everyone? We are here to talk about our predictions for X-Men 97 Season 2. I'm Andrew.
I'm X-Men.
So, Ben, if you would lead us off with number 5.
So number 5 is Gambit. So this is teased at the end of Season 1 in the sort of mid-credits scene. But it's pretty obvious, right, that Gambit wasn't going to stay dead for long. And at the end of Season 1, spoilers if you haven't seen it, but at the end of Season 1, there's the scene in Genosha where it's shown that Apocalypse carries the card that hints at Gambit. So it's very likely that Gambit will be resurrected by Apocalypse, but not to be an X-Men, but to be one of his horsemen. Specifically the 4 horsemen of the Apocalypse, and specifically he will become Death, literally become Death, one of the 4 horsemen. So obviously that's going to cause a shit ton of drama, as well as bring Gambit back, and it's going to be horrific and add so much more to the soap opera that we have here. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. More than likely that's what's going to happen. This is one of the safer ones, but yeah, this is definitely... More than likely, if this doesn't happen, it'll be a surprise to us all for Season 2. So, yeah, more than likely it'll happen. So, going on to number 4. Onslaught. Everybody's predicting it. We already got the mind meld happening between, Professor X and Magneto. So, that seed has been planted. And to see how that comes about going forward will be interesting. And so pretty much everybody has, agreed this is pretty much going to happen, right, in Season 2. And my little spin on it is, personally, I think we're going to have Onslaught versus Apocalypse. My reasoning is Bo DeMayo and his team have just been good at team-ups. We've, we had the Summers family, we had Nightcrawler and Wolverine. I assume he'll be kind of maybe he'll be a villain at first, but then they'll unite together to fight Apocalypse. So it'll be these like 2 Titan characters pretty much going up against each other, which I think could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and probably not surprising either that both Xavier and Magneto are both there in the time meeting the young version of Apocalypse at the end of Season 1. So very likely we would get to see the beginnings of Onslaught get to be formed from that, and potentially from that setting.
Let's hit him with number 3, Ben.
Out. Yeah, so number 3, this is also teased at the end of the season. In present day, Forge is assembling some sort of team that we see on the board, and he ends up meeting Bishop for the first time. Bishop, of course, knows him from the future, so that's kind of a fun dynamic. It looks like we are setting up X-Force, hopefully a much more successful X-Force than what happened in Deadpool 2, but X-Force being the real X-Force being assembled by Forge and Bishop, with potentially going into a spinoff of those characters, which is probably would explain why Bishop didn't have much role this season. Forge seemed to have more of a showcase for the season, but it would seem natural considering just how many characters are in this lineup that he would kind of need another show to like offset what's going on, since X-Men 97 should be kept to the main core characters that have been there since the 90s.
And I think that, Bishop and Forge definitely had things to do in the first season, but it looks like they're going to be a major driving force for the plot in Season 2 if they're kind of assembling the team across time. So I think that's a great setup, and also, yes, it sets up X-Force. They just announced recently that Marvel Animation will be more of its own thing. It's going to be Marvel Studios, Marvel Animation, and Marvel Television, I believe. So I think that they're really going to start gearing up for a lot more stuff like X-Men 97, like Spider-Man 90s revival and things like that. But also, it's pretty much a no-brainer at this point for them to do an X-Force spin-off for this show. I think they've kind of planted the seeds for that as well. My personal opinion.
Sure. We're starting to get into juicier territory here, but the number 2 is that a certain character be appearing or being set up whom we haven't met yet, kind of. And that is Strife. So Strife in the comics is a clone of Cable, specifically done during the time where Nathan Summers is taken in by Mother Ascani, who we'll talk about later. But essentially, Strife is then used by Apocalypse as his own potential vessel for the future, and ends up becoming the arch nemesis to Cable. Now, this is all very relevant considering the fact that we have all the seeds planted. We've just been introduced to Mother Ascani. Apocalypse is back in X-Men 97. Cable has been a big part of season 1. And it just makes sense, right, that we have with all these elements that some version of Strife will be introduced. Also, not to mention that we meet another kid version of Nathan Summers at the end of this in the timeline that Cyclops and Jean have been able to go to. So it seems like a no-brainer that this would also be set up. Yes, it's another clone right after the Madeline Pryor stuff of Jean Grey, but there's a lot of clones in X-Men that just comes with the territory, and we'll just have to see how they do about it. But I do think that Strife is probably on the way, potentially, in my opinion, probably introduced as a clone of Nathan being in season 2, but then being a big figure in season 3, just to give room to breathe and not do a clone of the season type of thing ever since we just got Madeline in season 1. So I would say maybe Strife is a more major villain in season 3, but he's hinted at or seen more, developed a little bit in season 2 to become the big bad of season 3.
Yeah, I think that there's pretty, as everybody knows, there's no shortage of Summers family drama. So it'll be interesting to see that play out. Well, I'll introduce it, but this is again, you brought this up to me, Ben. But
right.
So the biggest wild card that we have in our for this Patreon preview is that Jean Grey will get pregnant. So Madeline Pryor, Madeline Pryor was the one that was pregnant before, but this time we're going to see Jean Grey get pregnant in our ongoing X-Men Days of Our Lives soap opera. And tell them why, Ben. How?
Because the fact that we are meeting, how? We kind of know how. We know how biology works. It's a very special episode. Superhero stuff you should know if we have to explain that. But
we're going to sit you down.
When a man loves a woman. When Scott Summers loves Jean Grey.
Yeah.
In this case, though, it's one where we've already met another Summers kid, and that's at the end of season 1. Because, spoiler alert for those who don't know in the comics, though this is one Google search away, Mother Ascani is Rachel Summers. Rachel Summers is the daughter of Scott Summers and Jean Grey, not Madeline Pryor, but Jean Grey. Now, what's interesting about this is that it's specifically she originated in the timeline of Days of Future Past. She was a major character in Days of Future Past. She's the one who projected Kitty Pryde's consciousness into Kitty Pryde's past self in the comic book storyline. Obviously, when it came to the X-Men animated series, she's not part of that. It would have complicated things, but even without that, we still have the role that she plays in Cable's development and the fact that she's meeting Scott Summers and Jean Grey at this point. So, and taking care of Nathan. So it's very likely, right, that Mother Ascani's identity will be revealed at some point in season 2, and that this time travel loop will be closed, just like they kind of closed it with Cable's birth, by establishing Scott and Jean having a kid, which is very likely going to happen anyway, because Jean, I'm sure, is going to feel some sense of mother envy, considering that Madeline is Cable's actual mother as opposed to Jean. So she'll want her own kid with Scott at some point, and it just makes sense. And like we keep saying in the Patreon, Scott deserves a win.
X-Men.
And there you have it, everybody. That is our 5 predictions. That was our 5 predictions for X-Men 97 season 2. Let us know what you think in the comments.
You can check out the Patreon where we review every episode of X-Men 97. So if you're a big X-Men 97 fan, you want our input, our feedback, our reviews on that show, then check it out and join the Patreon.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll see you guys behind the paywall.